Without a doubt, Elementor is a super useful tool and you can build almost any kind of website with it. But there are a few things that many people do not know that you can do with Elementor. My name is Emmanuel, and in this video I'm going to show you 5 things that you probably didn't know you could do with Elementor. And in this video I'm going to be using the free version of Elementor, so you don't have to pay for Elementor Pro to be able to do any of these things. Let's go ahead and get started. By default, when you add a button to Elementor, it gives you the option to choose a background color for that button, just like this. But did you know you can also add a gradient as a background? It's really simple to do. Once you click the button under Style, where it says Background Type, click the Gradient option. That's going to let you pick 2 different colors to choose as the gradient. Now, you want to make the button look good. So in this case, green and red don't really work well. What I like to do is use colors that come out together in nature. So for example, one example of this would be the colors yellow and orange, kind of like a sunset. So let's say we choose yellow like this, and we choose orange like this, and we can see how that will look. And see, it looks a little bit nicer, it fades a little bit better. You can change the color of the text to match as well. Maybe a darker color will stand out a little bit better. Whatever you think will work best for your website. You can also change the location of each color. So for example, you can make it more yellow like this, or you can make it more orange like this. I kind of like leaving it 50-50 so that it's a nice transition. You can also change the angle. So here you see it's going from top to bottom, but we can rotate this and you can see that the colors change where they're coming from. Usually if you go from a lighter color to a darker version of the same color, it looks really good. So for example, going from a light blue to a darker blue tends to look pretty good. And here we have an example. I would put the text white for this one, and we see that it looks really nice, and it's an easy way to make your buttons stand out and pop. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And there you can see how the color slowly transitions. And of course, you can edit your button a little bit more to make it stand out, give it rounded edges or whatever you want to do to really make your button pop. So that's the first thing, adding gradients to buttons. The next thing you might not know how to do is manipulate the z-index. So what is the z-index and what does it do? Well, for example, let's say we want to add some images to our website. So let's add another set of columns here. And let's say we want to have 3 images right here. So we're going to do 1, and we're going to do 2, and we're going to do 3. And I'm going to make this column a little bit smaller just so that we can kind of see all of them here together. So let me just put some pictures in here so that we can have something to look at. So let's do this one, and this one, and this one. This one's, this one's kind of tall. It's kind of ruining the layout for me. So let's choose a different one. Okay, good. All right, so here we have our 3 images. Now we can use, under Advanced, these options here to move the image around within its box. So for example, let's say we want to move the image to the left outside of its box. Well, we go to here to the left and we hit negative, and we can see it starts forcing the image outside of its box. And let's say we want to move this image here on top. We can use margin negative and push this image on top of this one like this. And then last, let's say we want to move this image also to the left and also on top. We can here go to the left, and that's the negative margin is gonna cause the image to go to the left, and the negative margin on the top is gonna make it go above that one. So we can use margin to move images out of their box. But how do we control what image is on top and what image is under which? That's what the z-index does. So here we have padding and margin, but here we have another option called z-index. That is what determines what goes on the front and what goes on the back. So here there's no value. Depending on what value we put is what we decide will go on the top and what will go on the bottom. The higher the value is for an item, the higher up it is. So for example, if I click on this image and I give it a value of 1, and then I click on this image and I give it a value of 2, it's going to put it on top. And then if I click on this image and I give it a value of 3, it's going to put it on top of that one. So if I want this middle picture to be above these two, all I have to do is give this image a value of 1, give this image the same value, that puts them both on the same plane, and then this one, as long as it has a higher value, in this case 2, this value could be 99, any value on higher than the other two will work. So a value of 0, we'll put it under because it's less, and a value of 2, we'll put it on top, a value of 3, we'll put it on top as well, a value of 1, we'll have it half and half because these are all on 1. So that is how you can use the z-index to move things on top of each other. The next thing I want to show you is a neat trick for what you can do with backgrounds. Now you might not know this, but you can add a background to any element in Elementor. So for example, it's not just sections. Let's say I were to add a heading here, right? Let's just write hello. I could add a background just to this heading. I just go to advanced, background, and I can add a background to the word hello. So let's choose this one, for example, insert, and there it is. That background is now under that section, and I have all the same different kind of options that I would have. Now this is its own background just for the word hello. I could easily come back here, add a different kind of element like a button, add a different background to this button, just like this, and then go in and add a third different background to the entire section. So let's just say I pick this right here, and I'm going to go ahead and pick this one right here, and there it is. Let me just make it center. It's kind of hard to see here, but there it is. So there's a background for the section, and there's backgrounds on the elements. Okay, so what's the point? This doesn't really look very useful, but there actually is one really good use case scenario that I like to use it for. So let's say that you need to do 3 columns and you want to have 3 pictures here, and you want the pictures to be exactly the same size. Well, if I were to just come here and add 3 images, you know what, let's just use these same images that we already brought in. Let me just take off these values here. So let's say here we have the first picture, and then we have the second picture here. Let's take off these values, and now we have the third picture here, and let's remove the values as well. Alright, so these here are all the same size, which is great, but not perfect for this example, because what I want to show you is what would you do if you had an image that was not the same size, or you have images that are different sizes. So let me pick this one that I know is different. Alright, so here I have 3 pictures. Let's say these are your 3 pictures, but you want them all to be the same size, but they're not the same size. Now, I could come here, go to style, and go to size, and try to use the size setting to kind of make it look the same, but then you have these white gaps, and if I try to change the width, that doesn't really work, or the height, that doesn't really work. So it just doesn't really work. And if I try to cover, well, that's not that great either. I can try to make it work like this, let's see, but it's just not right. It doesn't fill it out perfect. It's kind of complicated. You can kind of get it close, but it's confusing. You have to do it for each image. An easier way to do it would be to do this. You can actually, instead of having to manipulate each image, you can get a spacer, pop it in, and you can decide, well, how big do you want this section to be? And you might say, well, I want it to be 350 pixels. And then we're going to come here and go to advanced and add a background to this spacer. And let's say we want it to be this background, the one that was like a weird size. Insert it, and we have our normal background options, so we can hit center and cover, and there we have our background image. And we can take this spacer and copy and paste it 2 more times. Then all we have to do is come here, go to advanced, and change the background image that we're using. So we can use, for example, let's say this one right here, which is a completely different size, and we can go to advanced and go to background, and we can choose this one right here, which is another different size, and insert it. So these are 3 pictures that are completely different sizes, but now by setting them as a background to the spacer, you can get them all to be the same size. And if you need to edit them, it's really easy because there's still a spacer, so you can simply manipulate the size of the spacer. So let's say we want to do 400. There's 400. Then I can come here, go to content, change this one to 400, and come here and change this one to 400. So this is a really simple way if you don't want to go in and edit the picture and like crop it and like upload it and take it down and upload it and take it down, and it's kind of really difficult. This is a really easy way to make all your pictures look the same size by setting them as backgrounds to spacers. So did you know Elementor has a built-in photo editor that lets you edit the colors and different stylings of the image? Well, let me show you how you can access it. Let's add here a new section, and let's say you want to add a background and you want to change the colors of the background or of the image in the background. Let me show you the tool that Elementor has built in. So let's set up a height for this, just so that we can see the whole background, just like this. And now we're going to go here to style. We're going to set a background image, but instead of setting a normal background image, let's go to background overlay. And here we'll pick the image and we'll choose an image from our library. Let's choose this one and insert it. And let's set up the settings to center and the size to cover. It looks a little bit faded because the opacity is at 50%. Let's bring that up to 100%. So here's a pretty normal section background, but here's the interesting thing that you can do to it that you might not have known. There's an option here called CSS filters, where you can click this pencil and you have all these settings that you might not have seen. So you can change the blur of an image if you want to make it blurrier. So for example, let's say you have a text paragraph and you want to make it easier to read, or you want to make the background stand out less, or maybe not make it as distracting. You can add blur to that background to add a cool effect to it. You can change its brightness if the picture is kind of dark, or if the picture is too bright and maybe you have text on it, you can dim the picture a little bit. You can edit the contrast of the image for the colors to pop more or less, as well as the saturation. And if you want the image to match the colors of your website a little bit more, you can even tweak the hue of the image to kind of get those colors to match a little bit better. So that's a really easy to use setting that many people don't know about, but it's right there under the image options, CSS filters. The last thing I want to show you is how you can use some image tricks to make glass-like effects in Elementor. So we have this really cool section here we added, but what if you wanted to make it look like there was a piece of glass floating in front of it that you could see through? So it's a really cool effect, and I'm going to show you guys how to put it together. All you have to do is create a new section inside of a separate column, and you're going to need to use an intersection. So here's our intersection. It's automatically divided into two pieces, but we can delete this since we don't really need it. So here's our section inside of a section. So what we're going to do is we're going to use those CSS properties that I just showed you to add another background inside of here and give it those glass-like settings. So how do we do that? First, we have to set a background for this section right here. We're going to click right here on the options, go to style. Now, it's really important that we use the same image so that when people look through the quote-unquote glass, they see right through it. They see the same picture in front and behind of it. So we're going to go to background overlay. We're going to go to images, and we're going to choose the same image. I believe it's this one, and insert it. So here it is. Now, you can't really see it very well. Let's fix those settings. Let's make it center, and let's make it cover, and let's make the opacity 100%. So right off the bat, we see that this image up here and this image in here are not the same size, obviously, because they're in different sections and they don't line up at all. So how can we make them line up? It's actually a really simple way to do it. All you have to do is come here to this section, the main section, go to background overlay, and where it says attachment, make it fixed. This will make the image scroll like this. And now if we come here and we do the same thing here, we go to background overlay, attachment fixed, miraculously they get lined up. You see that, guys? It's almost like it's invisible. So here we have our invisible piece of glass. Now we're going to start adding some effects to it to really make it look good. So we're going to come back here to edit this section. But first, let's put some content in here so that we're not looking at nothing. Let's put a title in here, right in there. We're going to center it. Let's say hello, and let's make the text white. And let's add a paragraph under there. All right, and maybe a little bit longer than this. And let's also make the text white. There you go, so we have our content. So now we need to make it look like there's glass under here. How do we do it? Well, let's go back to those background settings under style and back under background overlay. Now we're going to come back to these CSS filters and we're going to go to blur and we're going to add some blur. So let's keep going. Maybe, let's see, a little bit more. Okay, 6, that looks pretty good. Now you can see that here, you can see clearly, and then when you go like this, it looks blurry, almost like there's a piece of glass there. But it's not, doesn't look quite like glass just yet. We can still add more to the effect. So next, we're going to come here to the background option, and in the background, we're going to add a gradient background. So let's just pick white for now. And now we can barely see it. So what we need to do is go back to background overlay, and the opacity, we're going to have to move it down to 50% so that we can actually see that gradient. So here we are, 50%. So here we see that gradient now. Now it doesn't look quite like glass. So what we're going to do is adjust this. Let's make this black actually, just to make it easier to see. And now if we look at the background picture, we see the light is coming from the top right. So we kind of want to match that here. So we're going to adjust the angle so that the white is in the top right section. And there it is right there. And this color right here, this black, we're going to make it fully transparent like this. And this white, we can make it just a tad transparent, just like this. All right, perfect. Now we need to give this area here some space. So to do that, we're going to go here to advanced and we're going to add some padding. Let's do 30. That gives some padding. And let's also add a border around here to kind of seal it off. So we're going to go to style and we're going to go to border. And now the border type is going to be a solid line, only 1 pixel. And we're going to make it a very light shade of gray. We're also going to make it a little bit transparent because we don't want it to stand out too much. And let's add a border radius to really make it pop, maybe 40. That looks pretty good. And let's click update. Let's see how that looks. And let's preview it. And now when we scroll down, we see that we can have this piece of glass here floating above the screen. So it's a really cool, easy way to work with the effect, and you can adjust it and tweak it to make it look however you want. So maybe we could come here and maybe make it a little bit, increase the blur a little bit. Maybe that will make it look more convincing, or increase the opacity of it like this. Maybe 80 will be good, and a little bit less blur, but a little bit brighter. Just a tad like that, and let's update it. See how that looks. Okay, and that looks really great. So it's a really cool way to add a glass effect to any part or any section of your website and really make it stand out. Well guys, those are 5 things that you probably didn't know that you could do in Elementor. If you already knew them, well, let me know in the comments. If there's other stuff that you have discovered in Elementor and you want to share it, leave it in the comments as well. Remember to like this video so more people can see it. Subscribe for more videos just like this, and have an excellent day. Thank you.